Hello everyone, this is going to be a short presentation about our group study regarding transhumanism. Transhumanism is a loosely defined subject centered around the improvement of our minds and bodies beyond our normal capacities. So what is transhumanism? Transhumanism appears in many forms in popular culture. For example, vampires, superheroes, or slightly more realistic, mechanically augmented humans, such as the ones that appear in Terminator Salvation or Deus Ex Human Revolution. All these stories are centered around the core ideals of transhumanism. This concept is not limited to a single person, however. It can also be applied to a group or a whole society, such as the one depicted in Aldous Huxley's brilliant novel, Brave New World. As William Shakespeare's Hamlet says in his famous monologue,
"What a piece of work is a man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty! In form and moving, how express and admirable! In action, how like an angel! In apprehension, how like a god!"
As poetic as Shakespeare is, the question arises, is this quote still current? Should we not try to better ourselves even further? It is very difficult to create an exact definition for transhumanism, and many varieties exist. However, the most fitting one we found is from the Encyclopedia of Applied Ethics. Transhumanism is the position that human beings should be permitted to use technology to modify and enhance human cognition and bodily function, expanding abilities and capacities beyond current biological constraints. Transhumanism is characterized by a set of core values, emphasizing positive experience and recognizing the limitations of human cognition and embodiment in achieving maximally positive experience. I prefer this definition because it doesn't try to limit itself to a set of technologies, but instead defines transhumanism as a way of thinking, an idea. Because transhumanism is such a broad subject, it cannot be categorized into a single field of study. Since most of these technologies don't actually exist yet, we have had a hard time gathering data for our study. We have, however, identified several precursor sciences which can be used as points of extrapolation. These precursor sciences include, but are not limited to, plastic surgery, artificial limbs, and organ transplants. Predicting the future becomes harder the farther forward we travel in time. However, transhumanism is so much in its infancy that we feel it necessary to set our period of investigations to the next 20 to 30 years. Nevertheless, we can make more accurate predictions regarding these precursor sciences in the next 5 years. This graph shows the number of plastic surgery procedures performed in the US from 1997 to 2012. As you can see, there is a marked growth in the industry, and the drop in 2007 can mainly be attributed to the economic crisis. We have also extrapolated a logarithmic trend from the data points, predicting the industry's growth for the next 5 years. It's also worth noting that most of the increase comes from the growing popularity of minimally invasive procedures, while the number of surgical procedures has stagnated over the years. This suggests that any new emerging technologies should try to move in this direction as much as possible. Our next graph shows the number of organ transplants in the state of Ontario from 2001 to 2010. Although the trend shows a definite increase, one of the factors holding these numbers back is the lack of donors, an issue which can be solved with technologies related to transhumanism. Next, let's have a look at some specific technologies related to transhumanism. Because transhumanism is such a new field, it doesn't really have any trends yet. So let's have a look at some technologies categorized as wildcards or weak signals. Weak signals are technologies that are likely to become trends, but have not yet gained widespread popularity. Wildcards are much less likely to come to pass. However, if they do, they have a huge impact. Let's start with some weak signals. Bio 3D printing is a branch of 3D printing that deals with the fabrication of living tissue. Brain-computer interfaces allow human beings to directly communicate with electronic devices. Wildcards are much less well defined, but a few examples would include bio-nanotechnology, synthetic red blood cells, and brain transfer. Let's discuss some of these topics in more detail. One of the main uses for bioprinting would be the production of human organs for transplantation. According to an article on organ printing by Vladimir Mironov and his colleagues, organ printing or computer-aided layer-by-layer assembly of biological tissues and organs is currently feasible, fast evolving, and predicted to be a major technology in tissue engineering. Organ printing uses the principle of cellular self-assembly into tissues similar to the way embryonic-like tissues sort and fuse into functional forms dictated by the rules laid out in developmental biology. Besides their obvious application of organ transplantation, 3D perfused vascularized printed human tissues, or structural functional units of human organs, could become popular screening assays for drug discovery, testing, and further biomedical research. It is safe to predict that in the 21st century, cell and organ printers will be as broadly used as biomedical research tools as was the electron microscope in the 20th century. One of the most ambitious ideas related to transhumanism is the Avatar project by Dmitry Itskov. Avatar aims to extend the human lifespan in 4 stages. Avatar A is a robotic copy of the human body, remotely controlled via brain-computer interface. Avatar B will be a similar robotic body into which the human brain is transplanted at the end of one's life. Avatar C discards the human brain altogether, and the person's consciousness is downloaded into an artificial brain. Avatar D will be a completely holographic avatar. Personally, I think this project might be a bit too ambitious with its timeline, and also, transplanting or downloading the human brain causes many ethical concerns. Let's move on to our own foray into the subject. Here you can see a futures table that takes a look at several variables shown in the rows according to several possible states of regulations shown in the columns. The first column is a completely regulation-free environment in which transhumanism is allowed to develop without any checks or balances. This means that research and development as well as use is open to all, thus greatly impacting the everyday life of society. The second column takes into account some of the ethical concerns related to transhumanism and addresses them by imposing reasonable limitations in use as well as monitoring research and development. Under dictatorial regulation, however, these limitations are taken to an extreme. Development and use is limited to small interested parties, for example the military. It's also possible, albeit unlikely, that society completely rejects transhumanism and thus no significant advances are made. Our next methodology is the futures wheel. Here, we took a look at a specific technology, direct neural interfaces, and all the effects this would cause. This technology will drastically increase the speed of communication between man and machine, while also removing certain limitations relating to the use of said devices. For example, one could easily write an email during a morning jog. This could facilitate a change in lifestyle, where people have more time left over for other activities, while also removing intermediary operating functions such as typewriterists. One of the possible negative effects of this technology is the further reduction of direct human contact, while also making computers even more essential to modern life than ever before, thus widening the information gap between social classes. Parallel to this change, the rate of fusion between different existing devices, such as mobile phones, desktop and laptop computers, will increase rapidly. This would radically transform the computing market while also rendering traditional peripheral devices obsolete. In the final part of our presentation, we are going to be outlining 4 scenarios. In order to construct these scenarios, we have identified close to 50 driving forces or drivers. A possible grouping of these drivers is based on whether they originate from the rising new demands of society or whether they come from new technologies or products. A few of the most important examples can be found on the slide.
Oh wonder! How many goodly creatures are there here! How beauteous mankind is! Oh brave new world that has such people in it!
According to this grouping, we have created 2 axes. Horizontally, we've placed demand and inclination to transhumanism, while vertically, we've placed technological development and availability. In the production-driven scenario, the availability of transhumanist technology precedes widespread demand from the population, therefore manufacturing starts out on a small scale, as luxury goods. Soon, however, as competition on the market inevitably increases, prices began to drop, and thus making said technology more accessible to the general public. Because demand at the start isn't as high, some may view transhumanism as unnecessary and unethical. As such, resistance to change is likely to be significant. In the demand-driven scenario, the exact opposite occurs. Pressing problems, for example epidemics, overpopulation and so on, create an urgent need for solutions supplied by transhumanism. The incentive comes not from the companies, but from the general populace. therefore the inert social resistance is drastically less. In the purest humanist scenario, the chance of widespread use of transhumanist technology is negligible. The few exceptions may include the more medically pressing issues. The effect on lifestyle and economy is minimal, as resistance is exceedingly high due to religious and ethical concerns supported by laws and regulations. Our final one is the machine world scenario. Technological advances occur rapidly, and while there are always skeptics and conservatives, in this scenario the problems solved by transhumanist ideas are so significant that their voices are quickly lost in the uproar of supporters. Cancer is cured within years. AIDS and other deadly diseases soon follow. Because the technology is free from any kind of restrictions, the market quickly becomes saturated with products researched and developed at a multitude of different companies. Some are even government funded. The competition is fierce, but because transhumanism becomes widely accepted and popular, even hyped, the demand also increases exponentially. Prices are steep at first for premium products, but they soon become mass-produced solutions that even the middle classes can afford. The words challenged, disadvantaged, and disabled soon lose their meaning, but only for a brief time. Soon they will be applied to any human being who for some reason chooses not to augment their bodies and brains. They become social outcasts, unable to perform most jobs as well as their transhuman counterparts. There is no way of knowing exactly what path transhumanism will take next. One thing is for certain though. Evolution has been tried and found wanting. It is a relic from the past, too slow to keep up with our ambitions. Will it be for the better? Will we lose some essential part to ourselves? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure. Once the die is cast, turning back will be hard, if not impossible. In conclusion, as you can see by our projections, transhumanism will most certainly play a significant part in our future. It is up to us to decide how far we choose to embrace it. I would like to thank you for watching our presentation and hope that you found it informative. Goodbye!